Ever spent like hours debugging code just to find out the commit message for that change that broke everything? It's just fixed bug.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh, it's the worst.
Yeah.
So today we're doing a deep dive all about those little snippets of text that go with every code change, commit messages.
Right.
We'll be looking at this academic paper. It's called Towards Realistic Evaluation of Commit Message Generation by Matching Online and Offline Settings.
Okay.
Quite a mouthful.
Yeah.
But what's so fascinating about this paper is that it's like tackling this real pain point for developers.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're all supposed to write good commit messages,
Yes,
but it can feel like such a chore.
totally.
And honestly, sometimes we just want to get the code pushed and move on.
You just want to get it out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the paper actually points out that like time constraints can lead developers to just skip writing commit messages altogether,
Yeah.
which obviously creates a big mess down the road.
Yeah, huge problems later. But here's where things get interesting. So the paper isn't just about like how to write better commit messages.
Okay.
It's about how to like measure the quality of AI generated ones,
Right.
which is fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. We're seeing more and more tools like Microsoft Copilot or the JetBrains AI assistant that can automatically just generate these commit messages for developers.
Okay.
But then how do we know if those messages are actually any good?
Right. How do we judge the AI?
Exactly. That's the central question that this research is trying to answer.
Okay. So AI is stepping in to help us write better commit messages.
Yes.
But then we need another layer of AI to judge the AI commit messages.
Right.
So it's AI all the way down.
Well, not exactly. The researchers looked at two main ways to like evaluate these AI-generated messages,
Okay.
online and offline. So online evaluation basically means observing how real users interact with the AI tool.
Uh-huh.
So do they accept the generated message or are they constantly editing it?
So it's like watching over their shoulder.
Exactly, yeah. Like how much do they trust these suggestions?
Okay. That makes sense. What about offline evaluation?
So offline evaluation uses like automatic metrics to compare the AI-generated message to like a human-written one.
Okay.
This is where things get a little bit tricky
Yeah.
because some of these automatic metrics might not actually reflect what makes a commit message useful for a human.
Yeah, I can see that. Like it might score high, but still be completely confusing to an actual developer.
Exactly.
So how did these researchers from JetBrains approach this problem?
They did something pretty innovative. They actually analyzed data from real users editing these AI-generated commit messages
Interesting.
within the PyCharm IDE. This gave them like a valuable real-world benchmark to compare different offline metrics against.
So instead of just theory, they went straight to the source,
Exactly.
watching how developers are actually interacting with these AI messages.
Yeah, they wanted to see which metrics correlated with like real-world usage. You know what developers are actually finding helpful. And what they found was actually pretty surprising.
So they were trying to find like the metrics that really reflect what's happening when developers are using these AI tools.
Exactly. And what they discovered was that this really simple metric called edit distance
Okay.
turned out to be the best way to predict if a commit message is good or not.
Edit distance.
Yeah,
That sounds pretty basic.
I know, right?
Isn't that just measuring like how many changes somebody makes to a text?
That's all it is. And that's what's so interesting about this.
Yep.
It kind of suggests that these AI-generated commit messages are often like longer and wordier than ones that a human would write.
Really?
Yeah. And the edit distance basically captured that difference because users were having to make all these edits to shorten them
Okay.
and refine them.
So the AI is like showing off its big vocabulary,
Right.
and humans are just like, get to the point.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like AI still needs to work on being concise and clear.
Interesting.
Yeah, this actually like goes against a lot of the research that's been done before because all that research was using these more complex metrics.
So sometimes the simplest answer
Yeah.
is the best one.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, everything should be as simple as possible, but no simpler.
Exactly. And in this case, edit distance really cuts through all the noise and tells us what makes a commit message good.
Okay.
It's not just about grammar or like technical stuff.
Uh-huh.
It's about explaining the change in a way that other developers can easily understand.
Okay, so now I'm curious about this whole dataset thing.
Right.
Did they have to go through like thousands of commit messages by hand?
Well, they built this tool specifically for the research.
Okay.
And this tool allowed them to collect data on how developers were editing AI-generated commit messages
Okay.
in PyCharm.
Gotcha.
But they didn't stop there.
Brilliant.
So to make their data even better, they actually used another AI,
Oh, wow.
GPT-4, to create more data.
Wait, so they had one AI pretending to be a human,
Yeah.
editing the output of another AI.
Exactly.
That's like AI inception.
Haha. It does sound a bit strange, but it was a smart way to make their data set bigger
Okay.
and more like real-world situations.
So they basically created a fake world
Kind of.
where they could see how these different AIs would act.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a really intense approach.
Yeah, they were really committed to making sure their research was based in reality.
Yeah,
And I think that's why this study is so valuable.
okay.
It shows how important it is to actually test these AI tools out in the open, where real developers are going to be using them.
Instead of just like relying on theory.
Right. It's like the difference between reading about how to ride a bike and actually getting on a bike and trying to ride it.
For sure.
You know, you only learn by doing.
Yeah.
And with all this AI stuff happening in software development,
Uh,
it's really important to make sure that these tools are actually helping developers
yeah,
and not making things more complicated.
right. I mean, all this talk about AI and commit messages is making me think about communication in software development.
Yeah.
It's not just about writing code.
Right.
It's about explaining the code to other people
Yeah.
so they can understand it and use it.
Exactly. Commit messages are like the bridge between the code and people understanding the code.
Okay.
They give the context for the code.
Right.
The why behind the what.
Interesting. So a good commit message is like a translator.
I like that.
It's like making sense of something that could be really complicated.
Exactly. And just like a translator, it should be clear and concise and accurate.
Okay.
It should explain the change without too many details.
This research is really making me appreciate the human side of software development.
I know, me too.
Yeah, AI is powerful, but it's still human developers who are like running the show
Right. They're the ones making the decisions.
and making sure the code is good.
I totally agree. It's easy to get excited about AI, but in the end, software development is a human thing.
Totally.
It's about creativity and solving problems and working together.
Yeah.
And communication is a key part of that.
So what does all of this mean for like the average developer?
That's a great question.
Should they be using these AI commit message generators?
Well, first, it's important to remember that AI is just a tool.
Okay.
Like any tool, it has pros and cons.
Right.
These AI generators can be really helpful, like for getting a first draft,
Uh-huh.
but you shouldn't just trust them completely.
Right. So don't just accept what the AI gives you.
Yeah, take a look at it, edit it, and make sure it's what you want.
And second, this research shows how important it is to pay attention to your commit messages,
Yes.
even if you're using an AI.
A good commit message can save you and your team a lot of headaches down the line.
It's like putting in the effort now so you don't have to deal with a bigger problem later.
Exactly. And finally, I think the study tells us to really think about the metrics we're using to judge these AI tools.
Oh?
Just because something gets a good score
Uh-huh.
doesn't mean it's actually useful in the real world.
So don't just focus on the numbers.
Right. We need to think about the human side of things and make sure the tools we're building are actually helping us.
And not the other way around.
Exactly.
Wow. It's amazing how much goes into something as simple as a commit message.
Yeah, it really shows that even small things can be important in software development.
This paper was all about AI-generated commit messages for code. But do you think this approach could be used in other parts of software development too?
That's a good question.
Like what about documentation or even code comments?
I think it definitely could.
Okay.
The ideas they used here, like looking at edit distance and getting data from real users, those could totally be used for other things too.
So this could change how we judge AI content everywhere.
Yeah, maybe. As AI becomes more common in our work,
Right.
we need good ways to make sure it's actually helping us.
And not just adding more junk.
Exactly.
It's like finding that balance.
Yeah.
Where AI helps us,
Right.
but
Yeah.
doesn't take over completely.
We want it to be like a partner, not a replacement.
Well, this deep dive has definitely made me think about commit messages in a whole new way.
Me too.
I'll be paying a lot more attention to them now.
I think our listeners should too.
Yeah.
It's a chance to be clear and help out your future self.
And your teammates.
Exactly.
So to wrap up, are there any big takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
Okay, so first, AI is changing how we write software.
Uh-huh.
And things like AI commit message generators can make our lives easier.
Okay.
But we need to be smart about how we judge these tools and make sure they're actually doing what we need.
And sometimes simple metrics like edit distance can tell us a lot about how good AI-generated content is.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that Software development is still a human thing.
Yeah,
It's about working together, communicating, and solving problems.
totally.
AI can help, but we need to use it wisely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into commit messages and AI.
Of course.
We hope you learned something new.
And remember, stay curious, keep learning, and happy coding.